Good afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about aiming one of these things. I often get asked the question, how do you aim? And the answer can be as simple as you like, or it can be a little bit more complicated. So I'll try to settle on somewhere in between for this explanation. How do you aim one of these things? Well, the common answer, there's two ways to aim two ways, if we'll just say two, to aim one of these things. One is called instinctive, where you don't really involve an aiming method per se. It's what people call like throwing a baseball, where you look where you want the arrow to go and there it goes, ideally. And then the other method is some kind of a point of aim method. That can be gap shooting, that can be point on, that can be string walking, using the tip of the arrow as a point of reference for aiming in some way. So those are the two schools that exist, just to kind of simplify it as much as possible. So I'll just talk a little bit about each one. First one being instinctive aiming. I think this is the one that really appeals to a lot of people about traditional archery because it kind of fits into the spirit of it, if you will. But what I've learned and what I've been taught is that instinctive aiming is a rather rare skill or talent, and it is just that. It's a talent. It's not something that any of us earn. It's not something that any of us cultivate. It's just something that we're born with or we're not. And so I happen to be a great instinctive aimer. Tom happens to be a great instinctive aimer, but it's not a super durable method of aiming. People often say, as I just alluded to, you can aim the bow in a similar way as throwing a baseball. Look where you want it to go. And to that, I've thought up a reply, if you will. Most people are really lousy at throwing a baseball, especially if they have absolutely no training. It can be really difficult to get that sequence of motions from like the full arm to the wrist snap and release at the exact moment. It's actually really difficult to throw a baseball. And on that note, it really doesn't kind of come naturally to most people. So it's funny. They go, oh, it's just like throwing a baseball. And I agree, it is just like throwing a baseball. Rather difficult, requiring some technique, skill, probably some coaching, and looking at people who know how to throw baseballs better than you. So instinctive aiming, it's really just kind of a point and shoot method. I totally invite you to experiment with it. It's often associated with snap shooting being where you draw back and the second you either see your target or come to an anchor, you let go of the arrow. And I will not say anything bad about snap shooting because some of the best and most successful hunters and archers with single string bows have been snap shooters. So I don't want to say any derogatory statements or try to take away from it at all, because it has its place. It has extreme value and utility, but one of the issues is I see with it, as I related to you, not everyone is kind of born with it. And so what can we do for the rest of us that don't have that kind of natural hawkeye, if you will? Well, we can work on some kind of an aiming method. And so I talked about it a little bit in the split finger versus 3-under. But the other method of aiming is using the tip of the arrow as a point of reference for aiming the bow. And so what that means is as you learn your bow and you learn your arrow setup and the drop and all that, you will come to see that there's a gap between the tip of your arrow and the target that, let's just say, at 20 yards in your sight picture is about an inch. And as you go back to 30 yards, that gap will decrease to, say, a ½ inch. And as you go to 40 yards, just for example, that arrow might be right on the target at that point. And so that's called point on. All right, This is an example of point on distance. If our target were that circular target and we were trying to hit the dead center of it, you might what's called lollipop in aiming terms, where you put the target just above where you're aiming, or you can also just obscure your target, but that will give you what your point on sight picture will look like on a circular target. Show you on an animal target. Alright, and point on distance might be, again, just below the deer's vitals here. That's how I like it, so that I can still see what I'm aiming at and just put it right above. Or you could put it right on the deer's vitals. Again, some people like that. So that's going to be your point on sight picture. And again, that's using an aiming method, or using the tip of the arrow for reference for an aiming method. For our example, if you continued to go back 50 yards, then you might place your arrow tip about ½ an inch above what you're trying to hit. You go down to 60 yards, you might place it about an inch above what you're trying to hit. So at some point, if you're shooting your traditional bow long enough, you might not actually even be looking or seeing the target in your sight picture that you're trying to hit. So aiming is simultaneously overrated and misunderstood. What I mean by that is everyone has actually an incredible capacity to aim out of the gate. You may not have a great capacity to have a built-in visualization of arrow and or baseball trajectory, but you actually can aim really well out of the gate. And so what I want you to do for me wherever you are is just hold your finger out just like this, and I'll do this exercise with you here, and I'll just use my head here as like my aiming point, or actually no, I'll use the lens right here. And so what I'm going to do is just set an aim on the lens with just, and it's just going to sit on the top of my finger here, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to aim at that, and I'm just going to knock my hand off of it, and I'm going to try to bring it right back on the aim. I'm going to knock my hand off. I suggest you have someone that's not you do it, but you can see it's not really that hard to come right back to a solid aim. You must accept that there's going to be some amount of float, which is that your aim will move like this a little bit. It won't be entirely dead silent and lacking movement. There's going to be what's called a little bit of float on the target, which is absolutely fine. It's also called painting the target. And so just do that exercise, and you'll notice that it doesn't take really much conscious effort at all to just bring that right back to where you want it. And so the same is true with your archery shot, assuming that you're not under an insane amount of weight and just shaking like a leaf when you're at full draw. If you can put a steady aim on the target, it doesn't actually require that much conscious intervention and or effort to maintain that aim on the target. And so all that to say, yes, put a good aim on the target, but what's way more important is a conscious, deliberate, I'll say kind of a release that doesn't affect the aim at all. Because you've already set that good aim. Your point, or your goal after setting that good aim is to maintain that good aim through the release of the arrow. And so what you really need to be focusing on is the release. So I'll tell you a quick story about how good your brain is at maintaining the aim, and how much, if you can get your conscious mind and your physical sense input out of the way, your brain can and will maintain an aim for a few seconds without any strong intervention from you. So let me grab my coffee here so I can tell you this one. It's a fun story. So I had just shot the Air Force Academy archery range with my brother-in-law Colton, and he is a compound shooter. Hadn't shot bows as much as I had, but he's a solid shooter for sure. He got some coaching from Bill Pellegrino, and so he was definitely put on a good path right away. And so we shot the Academy range together down in Colorado Springs, which I cannot recommend enough. It's an incredible facility. The 3D range, the field range, the practice range. It's not a plug because they don't really make any money as a governmental organization. It's more just a plug for you as an archer. You should go check it out. It's a really cool range. Side note, there's also a really cool shoot called the R100 that travels around the US and has like big old dinosaur targets, and it's 100 shots in a day. It's rad. So Colton and I shot the Air Force Academy range, and afterwards we had been talking this kind of stuff, and just archery mechanics and technique, the whole shoot. And I don't like to I don't coach on the range, because when you're on the range, you're already employing the skills that you've practiced and that you've built, good or bad, and the goal being consistency, good or bad. And so my thought is that when you're out there, you already have enough factors. If I'm really trying to get you to understand and appreciate and instill some kind of new idea that you may consider on the range when your mind is already somewhere else, is probably not the best place to do it. A lot of times when we integrate some of these new ideas, practices, techniques, whatever, they actually make us miss worse. And people get so obsessed with the target, which I suppose makes sense because you're doing archery and you're trying to hit the target, but it's with anything, when you integrate something new, it's really unlikely that it's going to be graceful and perfect and without fault right away. You will integrate that upgraded order, that upgraded system over time, and the short-term effect may be some chaos, but the long-term effect is going to be a higher order. And so we go to the practice range afterwards because, like I said, I don't want to coach on the range. But I don't see my brother-in-law very much. And so I really wanted to share some of these cool things with him. I love spending time with him. I loved working out with him. He's become a good friend. And so, obviously family, but not all family or friends, as we know. And so I go, Colton, we're going to shoot pretty close range. He's got his compound, of course. I go, knock an arrow, draw your bow, come to full draw. Notice your aim, and just more than anything, just kind of notice where your body is just naturally set up to aim when you're at full draw. Don't try to aim anything, but yeah, I mean, acknowledge the aim. And I want you to close your eyes and then finish your shot. So he's game, he does that. I go, okay, I want you to do the exact same thing. Like, don't move your feet, knock an arrow, come up to full draw, acknowledge your aim. It should theoretically be pretty much the same spot because you haven't moved, and your draw cycle should be the same. And so when you come up into full draw and you get in the anchor and you check your sight picture, it should be the same. Yeah, notice it. Don't do anything crazy. Don't try to aim for your arrow. Don't try to not aim for your arrow. Just same as before. And please close your eyes and shut your eyes and finish your shot. He does. Bam. He Robin Hoods the arrow at around 10 yards with his eyes closed. And that was just that was the coolest exclamation point on the lesson for both of us in our time together, because it really just, it doubled down the idea for me, and it really opened his eyes to how powerful your subconscious aiming ability is and your ability to keep your aim on the target. I remember that was a few years ago, and I remember telling Tom about this, and then we were shooting in his backyard, and he goes, hey, let's do this at range. Like, yeah, you know what, because he brought this idea to me, of course, and into my awareness, and I started trying it out. I wanted to see if it worked in the field. I wanted to see if it was real. And so he was like, yeah, this sounds fun. We'd warmed up and we backed up to 40, 50, and I think 60 yards. And he's got a big old worn out elk target back there, and a worn out mule deer. And I remember we closed our eyes and watched each other close eyes and shoot at 40, 50, and 60. And it was amazing. I mean, we hit foam, and there were some really tight groups in there, and we were just focused on both of our releases. So just a couple ideas about aiming, how strong it can be without you really flexing it, and how to integrate it in your shot, and how to keep it in its place, as well as some fun ideas and stories about it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.